Hey guys, Hades here. This is going to be a little different. I'm going to talk about Shanghai, which was the first city I went to when I was in China. This is mostly scripted, and I'll just show pictures of it. I have no, I'll just get some free pictures. I have no pictures from when I was there. I have a few, but they were just people, not places, just people I met. Anyhow, let's give this a try. Okay, so you can actually find this on ABC Tales. My username is Hades502. Maybe one day I'll do a video about ABC Tales. When I got to China, I would write these, I would call them attachments, and they were just about my experiences in China. So this is actually scripted, so I won't be rambling too much in this. There were two parts to Shanghai, but I lost them both. I did publish the first part on ABC Tales, and the second is just gone. I'm missing a number of them. I have a few. I have one on Beijing I might do too. All right, let's get to the scripted part. Upon arriving in Shanghai, I was absolutely exhausted. Mark and I stayed up way too late at the hacienda near LAX watching way too many episodes of Breaking Bad. Yes, that's the same Mark you've seen in videos. I did not sleep at all on the airplane, as I cannot sleep on airplanes. The airport in Vancouver, where I had my layover, did not have a smoking section. They didn't even have any currency exchange places, so I couldn't convert my dollars to Canadian dollars. So I could not eat. When I had layovers in Japan, I had to go through security but not customs. My layover in Canada had me go through customs but not security. Some meathead, who was not the remotest bit polite, grilled me as though I were a prisoner of war for several minutes before I was allowed to sit around their shitty airport for 3 hours and wait for my next flight. Then I complain about Canada a little bit more. Then I say, however, they're just as bad in the U.S., actually worse. I've had bad experiences at U.S. airports too. The airport in Shanghai quite astounded me. I only had to wait about 20 minutes for my bags. In Manila, that could have taken 2 hours. And one time at LAX, it was over 3 hours. What would be customs in the U.S., where they look at your passport and ask you asinine questions about food and such, usually took me 20 to 30 minutes in Manila. One time at LAX, it took me over 2 hours of waiting in line to be tormented by some asshole who seemed to hate his life, his job, and every living thing on the planet. I waited in line less than 10 minutes in Shanghai. A friend of mine did tell me the Shanghai airport was extremely efficient, but due to past airport experiences, I had my doubts. This person was correct. When I arrived at the hostel, as stated previously, I was dead on my feet. I had been awake for almost 2 days. The flight was horrific, and I had developed a heat rash on my butt, my back, and my waist, and all along where my jeans were digging in my flesh for over 20 hours of sitting down, and on my right shoulder. Then I complain about that for several more sentences. And then I say, too much personal information. My girlfriend at the time met me at the hostel and proved to be quite a valuable asset my first few days in Shanghai. The hostel staff were all very friendly and helpful. Most of them spoke English to some degree. My girlfriend at the time helped me get a much better deal in my room than I would have without her help. It seems almost everything there is negotiable and prices are apparently not set in stone. I can just imagine going to a 7-Eleven in the U.S. and trying to talk to a clerk making minimum wage into getting a Coke for 10 cents cheaper. You can do that shit in China, but I don't, as it interferes with my personality. My ex-girlfriend, or my girlfriend at the time, does not mind doing it at all. And on a side note, that's not entirely true. Yeah, little shops you can do that, but you know, if it's a business with employees, you can't. Shanghai is a huge, bustling metropolis that has a population of around 20 million people. It's quite modern, with huge skyscrapers all about the landscape. It used to be referred to as the Paris of the East, but is more commonly compared to Manhattan these days, probably because then I make fun of French people. In my next one, I had an issue with some French people, but I lost that and can't really talk about it. Shanghai reminds me of Manila in many ways. The traffic patterns are organized chaos. When I first visited Manila a few years ago, it appeared to my American eyes that there were no traffic laws at all. It seemed that everyone was just doing whatever the hell they wanted. After a few days, I came to realize that the laws are very similar to any other nation, but you just have to get used to the differences. Traffic lights are mostly obeyed. Usually people wait until they are allowed to cross the street. But if there's a traffic jam, people just cross the street. There's so much traffic that people usually drive very slowly during the day. There are massive amounts of pedestrians, people on mopeds and people on bicycles. All cars, pedestrians, and two-wheelers almost form an intricate pattern of movement. If you study the situation long enough, I just imagine several colonies of ants interacting with one another in some sort of symbiotic way. When I was in Manila those several times, and when I lived in Germany for 4 years, if I needed help with translation, I would start asking random people if they spoke English. I never had to ask more than 3 people before I found someone. But in China, right, you can ask 100 people and if they speak English, and you might never encounter a soul who does. The huge metropolitan yet distinctly Asian feel of Shanghai is very similar to Manila. However, in comparison to Manila and even Mannheim, Germany, the Chinese do not share our alphabet. Every Chinese character is completely foreign to me. I can start to recognize German and Tagalog words, and they often throw English into their signs and advertisements. Not so here for the most part. I mean, yeah, there are some signs in English in China, but not as many as, let's say, other places. The people of Shanghai, with a few minor exceptions and one disastrously major exception, are quite friendly. I wouldn't say the average person on the street is so friendly, as everyone seems to be in a hurry to get where they're going. But shopkeepers and folks I have met in bars are so damn friendly and nice. Even if they do not speak English, they are all smiles and warmth. The police I have seen, and most security personnel, are an exception to this rule. They just stare and glower at me as I pass. They really do actually focus on me to observe, not just Westerners, me. I have a buddy I met in class who is from England, and he noticed them watching me more than anyone else. I attribute this to my longish hair, despite what I read online before I arrived. I have not encountered another male with long hair yet in China. Eventually I did later. I think traditionally men grew their hair long here, but I arrived 100 years too late to encounter that. A few days after I arrived, my girlfriend at the time took me down this alley, and I have never been so excited in my life. Well, that's probably an exaggeration. I witnessed what I expected to see in China from the beginning. A stinky, fish-smelling alley with vendors of all sorts peddling their wares in makeshift wooden, often bamboo stalls, with not a word of English spoken or another Westerner in sight. It enthralled me and fascinated me. After my girlfriend at the time left, I wandered down that alley several times. They would use disgusting tarps and old bits of cloth to not really protect from the rain. Kids would pull down their pants and just piss in front of everyone. It was great. A lot of these people were slightly less than friendly, but the majority of them were still all smiles. My girlfriend at the time warned me that if I go back there myself without her, not to bring my wallet and only a little bit of cash. But I have had no problems there. I had a major problem, but that was in the New World part of Shanghai, and it's a tale for another time. I've written more than 2 pages now, and I fear that if I write any more, blah, 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 blah. Anyhow, this was 2 sections. I had another section where I complained about all the mopeds and scooters, and I had an issue with some French people, and I had a bigger issue. But that is lost. I can't find it anymore, and I don't want this to go on too long. I went to Shanghai 10 years ago, and I stayed there a couple months. I was there in 2012. And it was fun. I really wanted to stay there, but I did have a job and a girlfriend at the time in Wuhan, and I eventually made my way to Wuhan. So this is scripted. First scripted YouTube video I've done. And all the pictures I get will just be free online pictures because, yeah, the only pictures I have left of Shanghai are just people I met. And you probably don't want to see that, and I don't have their permission to show them. Even my girlfriend at the time, I have a few pictures of her, but I've lost touch with her, and I can't ask her permission, so I just won't show them. Okay, guys, thanks a lot. Hope you liked this, and I might do more of these because, I lived in several cities, and I visited Beijing, lived in Wuhan. I've already done a Guangzhou and a Foshan one, but I also lived in Nanjing for a year, and Wuhan for 3 years. I also visited Xi'an. I might do a few more of these. Anyhow, I want to keep this less than 10 minutes. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.